What's going on, gamers? We got an interesting topic here to cover from Ecstasis. As we know, he posts a lot of stuff and sometimes has unique stuff that you probably won't see anywhere else. Well, according to him, and this is up to 273,000 views, PlayStation has made people so mad that some people are now starting to emulate and put homebrew on there. Yeah, they're hacking through the PlayStation and jailbreaking it after Sony announced that they're going to be killing disc-based games. So that's going to be the topic of this video, which is absolutely interesting. So become a member, leave a tip down below, hit that like button, let me know what you guys think. All right, so here it says caution, and then you see the pirate symbol up there on the top left with the parrot. As we all know, if you've seen Pirates of the Caribbean, you kind of get this idea, and you know, parrots and pirates, you know, they kind of go together. The war against physical formats has just unleashed a piracy crisis for Sony. If you guys didn't know, some keys leaked out a while ago, so people have some of that. And I think with the way things are now, you're going to see people trying to look for something different to kind of combat and do everything they can to make Sony regret their decision. So yeah, there it is. The war against physical formats has just unleashed a piracy crisis for Sony. So not only people are canceling their PlayStation Plus, people are now wanting to pirate the PlayStation. We're going to see how big this is, or would this be something that is very minute. But at the end of the day, we always know that there's going to be a crowd that wants to rage no matter what. Look at politics, it's always like that. So according to Polygon, by the way, this is coming from Polygon, the homebrew scene and PlayStation 5 jailbreak are exploding as a direct response to the decision to kill disc-based games. So basically, with the idea of being able to emulate or pirate, you get preservation. There was a thing against Nintendo like this for quite some time. Now they're targeting Sony from a different algorithm because Sony has so much third-party manufacturing and third-party games. You saw their disc factory, 600,000 discs a day. That's crazy. You know how many physical copies that is yearly? That's a lot, guys. Yeah. So much. So when you think about how much bigger the third-party publishing and development is compared to just Nintendo's first party, which is obviously massive, it's still ginormous because you have to add third-party now to Switch 2, third-party to PlayStation, third-party to PC, though it's not disc, but still, and just most stuff on mobile is all third-party. So there's a huge third-party crowd in general. If they always owned all, they in general are going to come in and rage against that, because there's a big third-party physical crowd. They were putting up some numbers earlier saying that certain first-party Sony's games this generation and other ones were like high in the 40% range for physical purchase, some 50. And the only reason digital looks higher than physical is because of indie games. So that ratio is actually interesting. So here we go with this drama coming on now. It says the wave of PlayStation 5 unlocks isn't driven solely by traditional piracy, but by the need to back up physical game libraries before Sony turns off the tap in 2028. So basically here, it isn't about trying to get something for free through piracy, but it's about preserving what they're going to take away from you. I don't know if you guys know, but Sony actually said that the games right now, this is why I kind of flag against this one, the games right now and before 2028 that launch, even if 2028 hits, you're still going to be able to get physical copies for those. They will never end physical disc production for games that launched before 2028. You think you can still keep making them. So somebody saying they want to back up physical game libraries right now is not really understanding that you could still get the physical copies and they're still going to be there. Sony's never going to delete that. This is what gives me the idea. Well, then Sony, if that's the case of what you're going to do, then are you going to have an optional disk drive for the PlayStation 6 to be attached or through a USB so that people could put PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 and games that come out before 2028 and be able to get backwards compatibility support for them? When PS6 go doing PS5 and PS4 backwards compatibility enhancements. If you could do that, I think that's going to definitely help you out. But there still has to be more than that. I still don't agree with this at all. Even Sean Layden came out and was slamming that idea, saying that it was stupid. He don't even like them fully abandoning PC for single player games too. Interesting how you realize Sean Layden's not there because he's not aligned with the vision of Hideaki Nishino and Hiroki Totoki. Because obviously they have a huge hand in this. And a lot of people are now rebelling against them because of that. And they're missing Sean Layden. Shuhei Yoshida. Right? Jack Trenton, Andrew House. Like, you know, during those times, those guys looked at things differently. Nintendo said they will never abandon physical, right? So this is one of the reasons why they're doing this. But even then, I can still understand why they still are going to think like this, right? Because that's just the way things are going to work, guys. Going down, emulator boom. Users are forcefully opening the console's ecosystem to install emulators and ensure backward compatibility that the company refuses to offer natively. Here's the thing. People have always wanted PS3 backwards compatibility from Sony. But what did Sony do? They put it on a renting service. They put it on the Plus service. Then they put a ton of PS3 games on there. People thought they were never going to even do that. But if you go on PlayStation Plus or Extra, all the PS3 games are pretty much there. But users were like, yeah, but I have physical disc. I would like to be able to enter that into the disk drive of the PlayStation 5 and play it and get backwards compatibility support like I got for PS4. Or like the way Microsoft was doing it with Xbox. But Sony was saying that there's an issue with doing that, so they didn't want to do it and they avoided it. And Digital Foundry showing that it was possible, and we saw before with other stuff even after that it was possible. So there's always going to be a combat against that. But now you have a double header going here with the emulator combat and the piracy against PlayStation killing disc-based games. Interesting. I can't say I blame them for thinking this after what Sony just announced, because we've already explained this in videos before that that's something massive that they're doing. And I know the majority of the people that are actually digital don't give a damn, right? But AGN is still covering this because it's a part of just covering as many topics as you can and doing it the most intelligent way and just making sure you have some balance here, right? I think this is definitely very important, and Sony needs to handle this also importantly. But I think at the end of the day, if you ask me, is this going to kill PlayStation? I'm going to say no. Because there's a reason why Sony announced this 2 years early in advance. Because eventually stuff like this will blow over and people will just keep on going. And PlayStation will still be fine. Sony is never going to be in an Xbox situation. Even though I know some people were hoping for that probably in the Xbox world, but you should never want that in general because you want gaming to be as healthy as possible. But there's fanboys that are so dumb, they will probably hope that because they have low IQs, they can't help improve the Xbox world. All they did was gloat in the worst times ever, and they didn't like combat anything. At least I see huge PlayStation content creators combat it. MBG's one of them. It gets very interesting if you read some of his posts. But then again, people are going to say, are you going to hold to that though? If that's absolutely the case. I'm not going to tell you I'm not going to buy a PS6. I am going to buy a PS6 because I'm not the guy that buys physical disc. I moved on from that a while ago. I love digital, but I don't like digital monopoly where you're controlling it. And I feel like you could just delete my stuff and then do whatever you want with it. That's where I was like, that's not why I went digital though. I went digital for a different reason. It's way more professional. It's way more organized. You never run out of copies. I don't have to worry about midnight releases getting left out. I don't have to drive. It takes up no space in my house to be like a hoarder. And I could just seamlessly have it. Like, I really like that idea of digital. That's where I love digital. But of course, when you think about corporations and a capitalist society and things in general, even outside of capitalist society, because this is a Japanese company, stuff like that is going to pop up. And that's just the individuals and the elites and the way they want to handle the digital world. The digital world can actually be fine. Look at GOG. It just depends on how you use it. So that's the problem here, is the way that it's being used and the way that people are not being left an option. And that should always be there because that's gaming preservation. And that's in general the history of gaming for the longest. Now going down, we see this right here, the Streisand effect. By trying to force a 100% digital monopoly, which that's what Sony's doing, Sony has radicalized a portion of its user base, pushing them to breach the security of its flagship hardware. So now we got people trying to get PlayStation 5s just to hack them on purpose and do what they want to do, because at that point they said, I don't feel guilty anymore because you're forcing my hand. That's why we got this hacked symbol down here, which we'll probably have this as a thumbnail. To attempt to absolutely control the market and eliminate physical disc have provoked exactly the opposite. Canceling PlayStation Plus and now emulator boom and homebrew hacking. Jailbreaking. like you jailbreak a phone. So that's the opposite effect. Video game preservation has gone from being a debate in forums to becoming hacker activism. Interesting stuff here. I want you guys to let me know what you think about this. Going down in the comments, Exorcist says, the legal headache for Sony here is gigantic. Historically, companies pursue jailbreak cases by arguing economic damages from piracy. But if the community frames this hacking as a preservation tool, in the face of the announced death of the disc in 2028 in the PlayStation world, the public relations battle is lost before it even starts. Interesting writing here. There's also a post that Sony didn't expect it to be this big, by the way. And they're waiting for Xbox news, which is actually funny. Yeah, we know that's coming. Microsoft was like, okay, we're preparing. Don't worry, we're going to come be the grand villains again. As a matter of fact, we've done so much. You're not still a bigger villain than us, but we're letting this kind of go out. They even ended up mocking them. So, because Sony mocked them in the PS4 era. You know, remember the easy to share a game and lend a physical disc? Interesting stuff, huh? And then Microsoft comes out saying that Halo Campaign Evolve is going to have a physical copy on PlayStation. Like, they're basically throwing shots at them. You got a lot of people coming out too. Even Tetsu Nomura, which I'll get to that post in a second, is very interesting. Nicholas says, we always use if buying isn't owning, then pirating isn't stealing. As if it were a meme, but no, sir, it's a perfectly logical thought and morally correct considering the dangerous turn the industry is taking. Now, here's where I say more than ever, I can give these guys leeway, right? But if the company was doing everything right and you still chose to do that and a game ended up failing on PC because you just wanted to pirate it and nothing was wrong, then that says a lot about you. But when a company starts acting like this, and you see what Rockstar is doing, and you love physical because that's just the way you are, you can't help it, you were created that way, and you feel like they're screwing you over, and you say, okay, well then let's play that game. I'm going to turn the mirror right back at you and I'm going to do this. Fair game then. I understand that. I'm not going to be the type to say that, no, you're wrong, you still need to get in line and support this anti-consumer agenda. I was like, okay, yeah, I understand. I feel you on that. Going down, Verdot says, thanks to emulation, I was able to replay this little gem. Good luck getting a physical copy or whatever. Urban Chaos. Oh boy, this is like Idios back then. When Sony had online broadband, when you put the thing underneath the PS2 to play online, a lot of people didn't know they had that built in because GameCube had the same thing, and Xbox would go online, Sega Dreamcast could go online. Good times right here. But yeah, I mean, if that's your reason for actually doing it, and it's not available, but that's your only way of getting it, I can kind of understand that point of view. Mr. Famicon says, let those SOBs brace themselves because the war has just begun. Boy, Varotech says, well done, they deserve it. May everyone with the PlayStation 5 use jailbreak, make backups, pirate, and as much as possible, cancel the garbage that is PlayStation Plus. I haven't had my Plus in a while. They've destroyed an entire legacy, and now they deserve to fall to the bottom. Now, that's the thing. I don't think they're going to fall to the bottom. This will do some damage, but here's the thing, bro. The way this industry works and the way Sony knows how to like get things going, the way their base is, since the majority is digital, I don't see PlayStation falling to the bottom. But I think Sony needs to reevaluate how they want to do this and think about it before the PS6 launches. There's still time. They can still reverse the decision. You want to hope for the betterment of that. But with the way they're canceling the disc factories right now, their main one, they didn't shut down all of them. It gives you the idea that, I don't know, it's looking like a red flag. You know what I mean? This guy says it's not the recommended option, but Sony leaves few choices. So now pirates are coming in heavy in the PlayStation community, and they're giving Sony the middle finger basically here. Choco Roy says, if Sony wants full digital it will be, but with piracy in the mix. Haha. Sonic says, piracy and the scene are the ones in charge of preserving video games better than PlayStation, and even keep the service running so that they remain accessible to download to this very day. So there we have it with PlayStation getting hacked, the pirate aspect going on. People are upset, and they're combating Sony by canceling PlayStation Plus, and then you got other people coming in with emulator booming and homebrew and basically trying to generate an influence upon this. Like I said, this is up to 273,000 views from the Exorcist post. He's one of the very few people that post this. I don't think a lot of people know this is going on, so I definitely had to make a video about it. But as I said before, guys, if we actually back up and go up here a little bit, We can find something else here. This is pretty funny. No CD, no PlayStation. Play has limits. This person is definitely not happy about that going on, right? Like I said, if you just keep going down, you're going to find a lot of stuff. PlayStation has confirmed that physical games released before January 2028 will still work after the company stops releasing new games on disc. That's what I was trying to tell you guys. Sony is still allowing companies to make physical copies, but after 2028, they're going to cut that off, apparently. If you already own a physical PlayStation game or buy the one that launches before January 2028 deadline, you will still be able to install and play it on a console with a disc drive. This gives me the idea that where you give people that optional disc drive to use for the PlayStation 6 with backwards compatibility for games that came out before 2028. I think that is a factor that you need to consider, Sony. Why not do that? The only change is that the new PlayStation games released from January 2028 onward will be digital only. Existing physical games in your current disc collection are unaffected. So this is interesting. This obviously does not erase the bigger problem here, but what this does is gives you the idea that no, you can still use that. If that's the case, then like I said, make a optional disc drive for PlayStation 6. To be able to play PlayStation 5 format and PlayStation 4 format. And I think if Sony does that, this is definitely going to quell things down a bit, though obviously it's not going to get rid of one of the bigger problems, and that's no physical games after 2028 for the biggest third-party platforming company in the history of gaming. Not even close if you look at the full resume. Third-party is what it is today, mostly and like massively because of PlayStation. Then you could say Steam and Xbox or whatever, but Steam was not always like that. Sony was doing this since the 90s. Selling 100 million hardware. You know what I mean? That's a lot of third-party support. That's why this is such a massive thing. So we got to get the idea here, but people coming down here are saying, don't believe Sony lies. People still buy physical, especially when it comes to AAA first-party games that people care about the most and want to own physically. F Sony. For Insomniac League, God of War Ragnarok was 76% physical. Lego Star Wars is 63%. Astro Bot is 55% physical. Marvel Spider-Man 2 is 54% physical. Assassin's Creed Mirage is almost 50% physical. Resident Evil 4 Remake is 45% physical. Hogwarts Legacy was 44%, and Star Wars Jedi Survivor is 40%. Was this earlier in the generation? Yes, but the point here is that there's definitely a physical presence in the PlayStation world. And people wanted people to see these numbers from the Insomniac League, which was obviously not fake. Everybody remembers this. And all digital PS6 makes consoles completely pointless. If I can't buy a physical disc, borrow from friends, or buy secondhand, I might as well switch to PC where games are actually cheaper and backwards compatibility is free. It changes nothing. We want physical support for games forever. So there we have that right there going on. We kind of get the idea here of the latest drama going on this topic. I got it covered. Obviously, you guys know I cover all topics on this channel. Things are very interesting. As I said before, thank you for the support. Bitter Truth says, if you're blaming Sony PlayStation for killing physical games, then you blame Rockstar too for selling out to this crap. They're both in it, and they know very well that GTA 6 is big enough to kickstart this nonsense. F them both. Do not side one of this greedy corporation. He probably can't speak English as well, but then at the end of the day, we know what he's saying here going down. This is where the community note happened right here. Digital purchases grant a revocable license to access content, not ownership. Sony recently removed hundreds of purchased Studio Canal movies from libraries due to licensings. And this is what makes people worry about the digital monopoly on video games. And that when it comes to preservation, you can go and do that. So they want to make sure, and if we're all digital and this happens to us, yeah, that is going to be a problem. I don't want you to delete my library of anything that I bought because I bought it. We agreed. I paid for it. It's mine. I can do whatever I want with it after that then and hold on to it, right? But if they remove that, then it's like they keep the money no matter what. That's the problem there. That's a one-sided thing. You see? And that's what a lot of people are worried about, and I can understand that. So let me know what you guys think. As usual, become a member, leave a tip down below, like, comment, subscribe. Do you think that the guys that are hacking right now are making the right step towards PlayStation? Because and we got something else to talk about when it comes to that, because a lot of people are thinking this is pretty funny, that Sony may, I've seen some comments that they think that Sony can reverse this, and that right now Sony was saying that they didn't think this outrage was going to be this big, and that they may end up thinking about how they want to remedy it in the future. And some of them were saying that they're waiting on Microsoft to come back and take the heat with layoffs starting Monday. We're going to see what happens. But as usual, keep on gaming, guys, no matter what platform you're on. Later.